तव कथामृतम् तप्तजीवनम् कविभिरीडितम् कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततम् भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः।
ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना. We are studying the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are in the conversation of 28th October 1882, and that day was the semi-annual Brahma festival in Venipal's beautiful garden house in Chiti. Morning, yesterday we read that, and day before yesterday, that morning function was over. In the afternoon there would be function again. At that time Thakur would go. And so everybody was waiting eagerly to see him. And as he entered, everybody's eyes were riveted on him. But very strangely, Thakur starts talking. Many people visit the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. If I see some among the visitors indifferent to God, I say to them, you had better sit over there. Or sometimes I say, go and see the beautiful buildings. So why I started with this? And then he says, sometimes with devotees their friends come who are not interested at all. So why start talking for this negative idea? We saw yesterday that he saw in that festival many people who had come to the festival only because it's a festival. They are not interested in God at all. And yet they have come there. And he's practically reminding that you are like that. And what is a festival? Some joy. Hoi hoi in Bengali. Some eating. Something going on. So it is for this. And the Brahmo devotees were most of them very shallow. Going to Brahma Samaj was like going to any club, social club. So that Thakur begins with that. You must understand why he starts like that. And then he is master in bringing over this talk slowly towards God. And we saw that also, that he brought it to Nirvikalpa Samadhi and Nirgun Brahman. So started from negative to show what you are, most of you, but then there are sincere people there, and those who are not interested in God, Thakur will make them interested in God. And those who are already interested, to them Thakur is telling what is the ultimate goal and what is the ultimate reality. So that day we saw this up to Nirvikal Samadhi. And in between he said that Tarka, argument, goes on till the pitcher is not filled. When it is filled, it does not make any sound. So Nirvikal Samadhi is beyond Vakya. That also he has said there. And he has used a superstition of those days. That was the last sentence we read. People used to say in olden days, that means during Thakur's time it was broken already. Olden days, that no boat returns after having once entered the black waters of the ocean. Now, where are the black waters? That means ocean itself is black. Black waters of the ocean means ocean itself is black. That means if you go outside India, people are mlechas. People have very bad sanskar, and you will become like that. You will be lost to yourself. So, but Thakur is using this for Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That you will lose your eye. You will lose your reasoning if you go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So a proverb which is born out of superstition that you should not cross Andaman was used as a cellular jail by the Britishers. The worst punishment given was to send to Andaman. And that also was called the Black Waters. For this very reason, very few convicts returned from Andaman. They died there itself. So this superstition, Thakur is using them in a positive way to show Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Now we come to today's portion. All trouble and botheration comes to an end when the I dies. So in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, I does not exist. And then only the botheration ends. That means so long as I is there, you have not realized the truth, and botheration will be there. You may indulge in thousands of reasonings, but still the I doesn't disappear. Reasonings, you are reasoning. So you are asserting your I at that time. So by reasoning, I will not go. So the dry Vedantins, the theoretical Vedantins, he talks about that you may reason, but unless you attain Nirvikal Samadhi, I will not go. For people like you and me, so now he brings down from there. Non-believers not interested in God, he has taken them slowly and shown the ultimate aim of life. And from there now, practical spiritual life. And he includes himself, though he has Nirvikal Samadhi very often. But to speak with the audience, he becomes one with the audience. Then only they will take him, otherwise they will not take. If you preach from a pulpit, people do not accept that. They hear that as sermon. You are speaker, we are listeners. But when the speaker identifies himself with the listener, then they feel that love. And through that love, they can absorb things. So Thakur includes himself and says, but for people like you and me, it is good to have the feeling I am a lover of God. Now Thakur introduces many things here. And he has repeatedly said that the only way to reach God is by love. Not by reasoning, but by love. So by love, how the Vedantis understand this? Today's Vedantis are fools, I would say. Shankar has said again and again, Bhaktireva Gariyasi. They don't believe that. And I was reading this Shankaracharya's Upadesha Panchakam. From start of your life till you go to Nirvikal Samadhi. He is describing step by step. And there also, he says, in the second shloka of the Upadesha Panchakam, Bhagavato Bhaktir Dridha Dhiyatam. As a step of spiritual life, Bhagavato Bhaktir Dridha Dhiyatam. Dridha Bhakti for Bhagavan. And in the previous stanza, Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam, we shall see that meaning. Karma Swanishtiyatam. By karma, what do you do? Chitta Shuddhi, not directly. Tene Shasya Vidhiyatam Apachiti. By your karma, you are trying to please God. And when God is pleased, He endows you with the adhikar. So, Shankar lays so much importance on bhakti. But people addict to so-called jnana, they do not accept that. So here, Thakur tells, love God. By love, what happens? How knowledge comes by love? Knowledge is not theoretical understanding. Knowledge is not information. Knowledge is the change of consciousness. Today we have the consciousness, I am a jiva and I live in this world full of objects. And this is wrong, this is mithya. Unless I change it to the Rishi's consciousness, Thakur's consciousness, that there is one reality throughout the world. This change of consciousness is called jnana. So, how this will come? If I love God, then the distance between me and God vanishes. Where is God? There. What I am, Alpanya. So this difference vanishes when you love God. By love God, you bring God nearer. And God is within you. You are really God. So you give up the notion that I am a limited being. So how this will come about? By attraction, by love. So he makes a direct statement in the gospel. Two statements we get in the gospel. One is the ideal of life is to realize God. But many times we find Thakur telling the main purpose of life is to love God. Why? Because through love God you are going to realize Him. So after showing the limits of Nirvikal Samadhi, now for practical life and to show Brahmos what you are, first he includes himself and says, people like you and me, it is good to have the feeling. Love is a feeling, belongs to the heart. And reason, jnana, does not belong to buddhi. It also belongs to the heart. So, the Saguna Brahma is meant for the bhaktas. The same Nirguna Brahma is Sagun. There are not two Brahmans, there are not two states of Brahman, because otherwise Brahman will become a changing entity. It is how we read Brahman. When I is lost, then it is Nirvikal Samadhi. But if I is there, as Thakur has shown, then best is to love God. And love God means God is a person. We love Him, He loves us. So, this Sagun Brahman is meant for the bhaktas. What is Sagun Brahman? Thakur himself explains. In other words, a bhakta believes that God has attributes, that is sagun, characteristics, and reveals himself to men as a person. So this person is the Sagun Brahma. That means he shares our feelings, like we see the incarnations. So reveals himself. That is not our imagination. God reveals himself to men as a person, assuming forms. So person means he has some form. It is he who listens to our prayers. Brahmas like to pray and call him, they are Nirakar Upasakas, and they wrongly feel they are Nirguna Upasakas. Nirguna Upasana is far cry, and that Thakur is showing to them. He has talked of Nirakar already. The real Nirakar is Nirgun, and that Nirgun is attained when I is lost. But you are not fit for that. And he identifies himself, I and you should feel love of God. And then he describes, the Sagun Brahma is meant for the bhaktas. In other words, a bhakta believes that God has attributes and reveals himself to men as a person, assuming forms. It is he who listens to our prayers. The prayers that you utter are directed to him alone. So he is now showing the place of the Brahmos. Slowly. I and you, he has already said. And then he said, what you are worshipping is Sagun Brahman. Because you pray. How can you pray to the Nirguna Brahman? Their I itself is not there. So, for practical life, he is showing what you are. The prayers that you utter are directed to him alone. You are bhaktas, straight away he has told them. You are bhaktas, not jnanis or Vedantis. Vedantists or jnanis, they believe that God is Nirgun. And your Nirakar is not Nirgun. Because you pray and because you say, God, you have made this and God, you have made that. That is all description of the Sagun Brahma. So if you know where you are, your progress will be better. If you wrongly assume you are that, you will not progress. You are bhaktas, not jnanis or Vedantis. It doesn't matter whether you accept God with forms or not. It is enough to feel that God is a person who listens to our prayer. That itself makes it Sagun. And who creates, preserves and destroys them. So Jagat Karan Ishwar is Sagun. Brahman cannot be said to create anything because there is nothing other than Brahman. He destroys the universe and who is endowed with infinite power. So the Shakti concept also belongs to Sagun Brahman. Infinite because he can do anything. And it is easier to attain God by following the path of devotion. So he brings to the practical point that if you follow the path of devotion, it is easy. Why? In the Gita 12th chapter, Bhagavan says, do you know what the Nirguna Upasakas do? Yepi aksharam achintyam avyaktam paripasate tesham ke yoga vittam arjunas. God says that let their talk remain. You, if you worship me with full faith, you are better. Because those who worship that have no body consciousness. Those who do not have body consciousness, for them alone that path is there. And their path is as klesho adhika tarastesha. That means the Saguna Upasana which I am teaching you also has kleshas, also has adhika kleshas, but they are adhika tara kleshas. And that is due to body consciousness. Avyakta gatir dukkham deha adbhiravapyate. Dehavan means one who is conscious of his body. For him, this avyakta upasana is impossible or very difficult. So, Thakur is telling Brahma, you are not Nirguna worshippers. You are not Jnanis like the Vedantis. It is easier to attain God by following the path of devotion. Now this reacts in the public. Brahma people who do not believe that God can be attained. As I told you, it is just some club life. And so the Brahmo asked, Thakur has hit them. And so the Brahmo devotee asked, Sir, is it possible for one to see God? That means he has no idea about that. If so, why can't we see him? Because you are seeing in the wrong place. God is inside you and you are seeing outside. But this question comes to a almost Nastika. Without this, take for example our mission sadhus. If they don't believe that consciousness will be changed, has to be changed, God has to be realized, what are they? Social workers. So the basic faith of the sadhus is that I shall realize God and God has to be realized. So Thakur tells them, so he asked this question. So is it possible for one to see God? If so, why can't we see him? What reply Thakur can give? Master, yes, he can surely be seen. One can see his forms and his formless aspect as well. So, what is formless aspect? You understand? Unspecified form. That means there is a lump of clay. It is clay and lump. Now we break that and make elephants and so many things. So that lump becomes elephant. Clay is unchanged. So clay is equivalent to the reality here, Nirgun Brahma. But the lump also is a form. It is not a specific form like an elephant or God or Brahma, but it is an unspecified form. So, if you believe in Nirakar, not Nirgun, then in your mind it is an unspecified form. And you can see that. That is what Thakur is emphasizing. You can see Ganpati or Vishnu and you can see the lump also because it has a form. So this is what Thakur is telling them. You are bhaktas and you can see God both with form and without form, means with unspecified form. And then he says, how can I explain that to you? You understood this? You are not fit enough. So if your consciousness is externalized, how can I explain that to you? You cannot receive that. He's pointing out directly here. So he has to change his question. That means God can be seen. I cannot see that. Sir, Brahma devotee, sir, is it possible for one to see God? Brahma devotee, what are the means by which one can see God? Now he has come to straighter path. And Thakur has already said we should love him. But he is asking for the path now. He has become little straight by Thakur telling, how can I explain to you? Master. And here Thakur's answer is consistent throughout the gospel. What he told Master Masha on the second day, when he asked, in what condition of the mind God can be realized? Thakur told him yearning. Thakur told him three attractions, if they become one and directed to God. Thakur told him utter surrender. Three things he told him in reply to his question on realizing God. And consistently he will tell the same thing. So here he says, can you weep for him with intense longing of heart? So weeping should not be a show. With intense longing of heart, can you weep? So that is the only consideration. Intense longing is the only consideration. And it will express as weeping. Men shed a jug full of tears for the sake of their children, for their wives, or for money. So he shows the example of feeling. But who weeps for God? Now he gives a beautiful example. So long as the child remains engrossed with his toys, so world is a play for us. The mother looks after her cooking and other household duties. But when the child no longer relishes the toys, boganta, it throws them aside. So tyaga is absolutely necessary. It throws them aside and yells for its mother. Intense yearning makes him yell. Then the mother takes the rice pot down from the hearth, runs in haste, and takes the child in her arms. So if you run, God will come to you. Brahmo devotee. Now he shifts his question. Thakur is telling the truth. Sir, why are there so many different opinions about the nature of God? Because he is confused between Nirakara and Sakara. Some say that God has form, while others say that he is formless. Again, those who speak of God with form tell us about his different forms. Why all this controversy? Thakur's reply, why all the controversy? Master, a devotee thinks of God as he sees him. So according to the mental constitution he sees, and according to that he describes. In reality, there is no confusion about God. God explains all this to the devotee if the devotee only realizes him somehow. So find a way, realize him, yearning, and then you will understand. So even understanding requires love of God, realizing. You haven't set your foot in that direction, clear. How can you expect to know all about God? Their direction is toward the world. Direction toward the God you have not set your foot upon. So very clear stop. In the Brahmo semi-annual function, devotee, celebration, listen to a story. So one-sidedness of thinking, all that he explains now. Once a man entered a wood and saw a small animal on a tree. He came back and told another man that he had seen a creature of a beautiful red color on it on a certain tree. The second man replied, when I went into the wood, I also saw that animal, but why do you call it red? It is green. Another man who was present contradicted them both and insisted that it was yellow. So why controversy like this? Presently others arrived and contended that it was grey, violet, blue, and so forth and so on. At last they started quarreling among themselves. To settle the dispute, they all went to the tree. They saw a man sitting under it, so who knows God closely, constantly. On being asked, he replied, "Yes, I live under this tree and I know the animal very well. All your descriptions are true. Sometimes it appears red. It is not red, it appears red. Sometimes yellow and other times blue, violet, grey, and so forth. It is a chameleon. You know this. Why chameleon changes its colors? It becomes camouflage. What the surroundings are there, it has that color. So that people will not recognize it. And sometimes it has no color at all. That is its nature. Now it has a color and now it has no. So immediately it can change. In like manner, one who constantly thinks of God can know Him, know His real nature. And you are not in that direction even. He alone knows that God reveals Himself to seekers in various forms and aspects. God has attributes, then again He has none. Only the man who lives under the tree knows that the chameleon can appear in various colors, and he knows further that the animal at times has no color at all. So, compared to Nirgun Brahman, it is the others who suffer from the agony of futile argument. Agony of futile argument. Kabir used to say, so he refers to a man of realization. The formless absolute is my father, and God with forms is my mother. So I love both. God reveals Himself in the form which His devotee loves most. So in the mind, we love a particular form. So that God appears like that. His love for the devotee knows no bound. God's love for the devotee, because they are all His shadows. It is written in the Purana that God assumed the form of Rama for His heroic devotee Hanuman. You know the story. No, Rama's devotee is Hanuman, always. Once in the war with Ravana bound both Rama and Lakshmana by Nagapashas. Now, how to get rid of that? Naga's worst enemy is the Garuda. So Hanuman approached Garuda and asked, please come. Garuda knows that Vishnu and Rama are same. So Garuda comes, the snakes run away. Now when Garuda came, to please him, Rama had become Vishnu. And Hanuman was become restless. So when Garuda went away, Hanuman says, Rama, please come in Rama form, I want you. So what he likes, God becomes. That is the story. And Rama asked him, don't you know that Vishnu and Rama are same? He says, I know, but I like Rama. Shri Nate, Janaki Nate, Aveda Paramatmani, Tathapi Mama Sarvasva Rama Kamalalocan. So that is what is true. Because through that form he realized God. So that is his special form. But then, ultimate, what is ultimate? There is no form. The forms and aspects of God disappear when one discriminates in accordance with the Vedanta philosophy. Next second. Now, I have a little objection to this word philosophy. Philosophy is a set of thinking process. Vedanta means the end of knowledge. Understood? In original Bengali, Vedanta Vicharer Kache. Vedanta Vichar. Thinking according to Vedanta. Philosophy is not mentioned. The forms and aspects of God disappear when one discriminates in accordance with the Vedanta. The ultimate conclusion of such discrimination is that Brahman alone is real and the world of names and forms is illusory. So a new concept Thakur brings here. Whatever has a name and form is illusory. If I have a name and a form, I am illusory. It is possible for a man to see the forms of God or to think of him as a person only so long as he is conscious that he is a devotee. So Thakur tells the way is devotion, but Thakur knows very well the ultimate reality. From the standpoint of discrimination, this ego of a devotee keeps him a little away from God. Takes him very near, but keeps him away. And due to devotion itself, when the ego is lost, then he gets the full realization. Very clear in his statements. Do you know why images of Krishna or Kali are 3.5 cubits high? Another way Thakur is putting. We confuse infinitude with physical infinitude. And then we say, why infinite God can come in this? No. God is not infinite by space. God is infinite because he is one without a second. God is consciousness. So this infinitude of consciousness can express in a small physical frame. So Thakur explains it in a nice way now. Do you know why images of Krishna or Kali are 3.5 cubits high? Because of distance. You see God from a distance. If you can merge in God, no color, no dimension. But the Bhakta is looking at God from a distance. Again, on account of distance, the sun appears to be small. Kali Krishna gives another example which is evident. But if you go near it, you will find the sun so big that you won't be able to comprehend it. How many times greater than the earth and where we are? Why are images of Kali and Krishna a dark blue color? That too is on account of distance. Like the water of a lake, which appears green, blue or black from a distance. Go near, take the water in the palm of your hand and you will find that it has no color. The sky also appears blue from a distance. Go near and you will see that it has no color at all. So as you approach God, you will find that he is colorless. Therefore, I say that in the light of Vedantic reasoning, Brahman has no attributes. The real nature of Brahman cannot be described because Vani cannot reach there. If you see something, you can describe. But so long as your individuality is real, the world also is real. So people, some of the Vedantis say the world is unreal. It includes you. You are in the world. But so long as your individuality is real, the world also is real. And equally real are the different forms of God and the feeling that God is a person. For you, devotion, Sagun Brahma, God is a person. People say, Vedantic people, that is also unreal. but you are real. If you are real, world is real, God also is with forms. Yours is the path of bhakti, so he comes back to the Brahmas. That is very good. It is an easy path. You can fully know the infinite. Who can fully know the infinite God? And what need is there of knowing the infinite? Having attained this rare human birth, my supreme need is to develop love for the lotus feet of God. So again, come back to that love. If a jug of water is enough to remove my thirst, why should I measure the quantity of water in a lake? That means my purpose of life is fulfilled. I become drunk on even half a bottle of wine. What is the use of my calculating the quantity of liquor in the tavern? What need is them of knowing the infinite? What need is there? That means don't get confused. Follow your path and you will come to know in the end. Now if you start this or that, you will not develop that love. The various states of mind of the Brahmajnani are described in the Vedas. So there it is told, one who knows Brahman full, how he is. The path of knowledge is extremely difficult. We have just now seen the I consciousness should be lost. One cannot obtain jnana if one has the least trace of worldliness, attraction for the world, and the slightest attachment to woman and gold. That is the concrete form of the world. This is not the path for the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, the mind is weak already. The Vedas speak of 7 planes where the mind dwells. When the mind is immersed in worldliness, it dwells in the 3 lower planes, at the navel, organ of generation, and the organ of evacuation. In that state, the mind loses all its higher visions. It broods only on woman and gold. The 4th plane of the mind is at the heart. So heart is the seat of seeing God, not till then. When the mind dwells there, one has the first glimpse of spiritual consciousness. Chetan, we feel there. One sees light all around. Light is the representation of consciousness. Such a man, perceiving the divine light, becomes speechless with wonder and says, what is this? What is this? His mind does not go downward in the objects of the world. The 5th plane of the mind is at the throat. When the mind reaches this, the aspirant becomes free from all ignorance and illusion. He does not enjoy talking or hearing about anything but God. Vairagya place. Understand? If people talk about worldly things, he leaves the place at once. We like gossiping. The 6th plane is at the forehead. When the mind reaches it, the aspirant sees the form of God day and night, constantly. But even then, a little trace of ego remains. Aham Brahmasmi. At the sight of that incomparable beauty of God's form, one becomes intoxicated and rushes forth to touch and embrace it. That is what happens in the language of the bhakti. It is like the light made inside a lantern. Glass is still there. One feels as if one could touch the light but one cannot on account of the pain of glass. If the top of the head, in the top of the head is the seventh plane. When the mind rises there, one goes into samadhi. Then the Brahmajnani directly pursues Brahman, but in that state his body does not last many days. It cannot come back. So can it last? He remains unconscious of the outer world. If milk is poured into his mouth, it runs out, dead to the outside world. Dwelling on this plane of consciousness, he gives up his body in 21 days, maximum. That is the condition of the Brahmajnani. But yours is the path of devotion. Again, he repeats that. That is a very good and easy path. Once a man said to me, "Sir, can you teach me quickly the thing you call samadhi?" There is a story that in the Greece land, Euclid developed geometry. And everybody became a fan of Euclid, going to him to learn. Now the king thought, I will also learn, but he should teach me in a short and easy way. So he called Euclid and said, "Will you teach me geometry?" "Yes, I can teach anybody, but it should not be as laborious." Then he said, there is no royal route to geometry. Kings do not have a separate road if you want to learn geometry. So that is the case. Can you teach me quickly the thing you call samadhi? All laugh because they understand. After a man has attained samadhi, all his actions drop away. I does not remain as an active. So all his work draws away. All devotional activities such as worship, japa and the like, as well as all worldly duties, cease to exist for such a person. Even the devotional exercises. At the beginning, there is much ado about work. As a man makes progress towards God, the outer display of his work becomes less and less. This is Thakur's speciality. When we read Shankar or even Gita, it appears as if they are rigid compartments. After this work, then jnana. That is not true. Thakur is giving the example that as the jnana increases, the work lessens. And when jnana will fully increase, then work will drop. At the beginning, there is much ado about work. As a man makes progress towards God, the outer display of his work becomes less and less, so much so that he cannot even sing the name and glories of God. This also stops. To Shivanath, as long as you were not here at the meeting, people talked a great deal about you and discussed your virtues, but no sooner did you arrive here than all that stopped. Now the very sight of you makes everyone happy. People now simply say, here is Shivanath Baba. All other talk about you has stopped. A direct example. After attaining Samadhi about himself, I once went to the Ganges to perform Tarpan. Tarpan, you understand? In memory of parent. When his mother passed away, then Thakur did this. But he could not hold the water. But as I took water in the palm of my hand, it trickled down through my fingers. Weeping, I said to Haladari, "Cousin, what is this?" Haladari replied, "It is called Galita Hasta. in the holy books. After the vision of God, such duties as the performance of Tarpan drops away. So in Thakur's case, he has demonstrated everything physically. Now, common example. In the Kirtan, the devotee first sings, Nitai Amar Mata Hati. My Nitai dances like a mad elephant. As the devotional mood deepens, he simply sings Hati Hati. Next, all he can sing is Hati. Goes into some, all the while then becomes speechless. So, gradual steps. Again, at a feast given to the another example. Again, at a feast given to the Brahmins, one at first hears much noise of talking in mission every day. And last of all is simply when the guests sit on the floor with leaf plates in front of them, much of the noise ceases. Much of the noise, still it is there. Then one hears only the cry, bring some luchi. Luchi has to be explained. People other than Bengalis do not know what is luchi. Equivalent is puri, and puri is made of wheat flour, and luchi is made of maida, that flour of wheat from which the rough part has been removed. That is the difference. Then one hears only the cry, bring some luchi. As they partake of the luchi and other dishes, 3/4 of the noise subsides. When the curd, the last course, appears, one hears only the sound soup soup as the guests eat the curd with their fingers. Then there is practically no noise. Afterwards, all retire to sleep and absolute silence reigns. So, through a common example, as one proceeds towards God, one loses the discussions. Therefore, I say at the beginning of religious life, a man makes much ado about work. As his mind dives deeper into God, he becomes less active. Last of all comes the renunciation of work, followed by samadhi. Generally, the body does not remain alive after the attainment of samadhi. The only exceptions are such sages as Narada. They are pure from the beginning, who keep their bodies alive in order to bring spiritual light to others. It is also true of divine incarnations like Chaitanya. After the veil is done, one generally throws away the spade and the basket. But some keep them in order to help their neighbors. So many examples to make it feel. The great souls who retain their bodies after samadhi feel compassion for the suffering of others. They are not so selfish as to be satisfied with their own illumination. So this is beyond the man of realization. You are well aware of the nature of selfish people. If you ask them to spit at a particular place, they won't, lest it should do you good. So extreme on one side. If you ask them to bring a sweetmeat worth a cent from the store, they will perhaps lick it on the way back. Lick the hand or laugh. So it shows the extremes. But the manifestation of divine power are different in different beings. Manifestation. Ordinary souls are afraid to teach others. A piece of worthless timber may itself somehow float across the water, but it sinks even under the weight of a bird. Sages like Narada are like a heavy log of wood which not only floats on the water but also can carry men, cows, and even elephants. So, difference between man and sadhak, difference between sadhak and siddha, difference between siddha and nitya siddha or avatar. To Shivnath and the other Brahmo devotees, can you tell me why you dwell so much on the powers and glories of God? You forget God at that time. So another defect of the Brahmos is pointing. I asked the same thing of Keshav Sen. One day Keshav and his party came to the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. I told them I wanted to hear how they lectured. A meeting was arranged in the paved courtyard above the bathing ghat on the Ganges, Chandni there, where Keshav gave a talk. He spoke very well. I went into a trance because experience. After the lecture, I said to Keshav, why do you so often say such things as, oh God, what beautiful flowers thou hast made. Oh God, thou hast created the heavens, the stars and the ocean, and so on. Those who have splendor, those who love splendor are fond of dwelling God's. In our case, do you understand? Some people, not only mission outside, they like Swami Vivekananda without liking Ramakrishna. So what is they see in Swami Vivekananda? Glamour. He was a good speaker. He was this, he was a patriot. He did this, he did that. Without God, it is a glamour. So if you are carried by glamour, we will forget God. We should judge Swami Vivekananda only because he was the petmost instrument of Thakur.
Petmost.
Huh?
Petmost. Instrument of Thakur.
Dearest. Once a thief stole the jewels from the images in the temple of Radhakanta. Mathur Babu entered the temple and said to the deity, what a shame, O God, you couldn't save your own ornaments. The idea, I said to Mathur, does he who has Lakshmi for his handmaid and attendant ever lack any splendor? Those jewels may be precious to you, but to God they are no better than lumps of clay. Shame on you. You shouldn't have spoken so meanly. What riches can you go to God to magnify His glory? So this is our devotee. Mathur is a good devotee, so Thakur tells him. Therefore I say, a man seeks the person in whom he finds joy. What need has he to ask where that person lives, the number of his houses, gardens, relatives and servants, or the amount of his wealth? I forget everything when I see Narendra. Never even unwittingly have I asked him where he lived, what his father's profession was, or the number of his brothers. Dive deep in the sweetness of God's bliss. What need have we of His infinite creation and unlimited glory? So we'll read the song tomorrow.